The Thors wants you to play Death Test and Death Test 2. From Steve Jackson Games and part of the Fantasy Trip role-playing game system, Death Test is a reprint of the original adventures published over 40 years ago. Inside the box, you will receive the following: the 24-page Death Test Adventure Book, the 48-page Death Test 2 Adventure Book, and 66 counters. To play the Death Test Adventure, you will need Melee and Wizard if you want to play with magic rules. You will need both Melee and Wizard to play Death Test 2. You can play either adventure solo, 2-player, or with multiple players. There is no Game Master required, as the booklets provide all the information necessary to create the characters, set up the maps when needed, and guide you through the dungeon. Each test is a programmed adventure, using the classic Choose Your Adventure format, which was popular during the 1970s. This means that you start at paragraph number 1, read the information, and then choose which paragraph to go to next based on the instructions provided. To get started, you'll need to create your characters. You are limited to 4 characters, which can all be warriors, all wizards, or a mixture of both. Whatever team you choose, it's important that you create a cohesive team. This means combining individuals who can score hits at long range, which means missile spells or weapons, close range, which means having strong physical weapons or staffs, and having enough protection, which means at least 1 or 2 characters with armor and shields. It is recommended that you start with more experienced characters. Since beginning characters start with 24 or 32 points if you are using Wizard, you can either create the characters to fight random monsters to build experience, or just add more points when you make them. With your team ready, you may now enter the first room, and the adventure starts on paragraph number 1. Both adventures consist of walking through corridors that connect to rooms. The rooms will consist of play maps from either Melee or Wizard. You will need to create a personal map showing the connections of the corridors to the rooms. This is because both adventures have side rooms that may distract you from reaching the end. The adventure consists of a single fight, which means that wizards cannot recover from exhaustion, nor can characters recover from wounds. Keep in mind that the goal is to survive the test. This means that you will have to defeat or force whatever foe inside each room to flee. The paragraph will instruct you on what to place in the room before combat starts. You set up your characters on one side in the hexes with stars. The paragraph will provide instructions on what needs to be done to complete the requirements before leaving the room. Keep in mind that some paragraphs may allow you to leave a room while foes are still present, such as if they are asleep and you can tippy-toe by. You can exit the room by entering the hexes with stars on the other side of the room and having a single movement point left to exit the door, assuming foes are still present. It is possible for a character to flee a room while the foes are still present. However, if you flee once, your rank at the end of the game, assuming you survive, will be that of a recruit. Flee twice and you will not be accepted into the service. 3 times and you become target practice. Some rooms contain treasure. For every gold bar that a character carries, it slows them down by 1 movement point. Remember that you can leave treasure behind in a room, but if you go back to fetch it, the treasure may not be there if you roll a 5 or a 6 on a single die. The same is true for wounded comrades that you may leave behind. There is no artificial intelligence or AI that controls the creatures. You will need to use common sense when controlling them. Plus, follow any special instruction as given in the paragraph. It is possible to split your party by going out different exits, but this will complicate the game considerably, especially if 2 or more different rooms are entered at the same time. For the sake of simplicity, you should probably stick together on your first venture through the death test. For those who have wizards, it is possible to create an illusion in the corridor before entering a room. However, illusions cannot go through the doorways, so it will not do you any good in terms of advanced scouting. Of the foes you will face in the death test, only those who have an IQ of 8 or above will attempt to disbelieve an illusion if you are playing the game solitaire. The win condition in Death Test and Death Test 2 is simple. At least 1 character must survive and exit the dungeon. However, there are different levels of victory depending on the points earned for killing the fighters, creatures, and monsters that inhabit the dungeon. The more points you rack up, the higher the pay you will receive. Death Test and Death Test 2 represent the next step for those who have purchased the Melee and Wizard base games. Each self-contained adventure offers a great way to test out characters, kill monsters, and gather treasure if you so desire.